Hello and welcome to the MovieKing Podcast. My name is David Jurmann and I'll be your host. On today's episode, I'm going to review the film Zootopia 2, and in the second half, I'm going to review the movie Hamnet. So starting off with Zootopia 2, I feel like I probably should have been more excited for this one than I was. The first film is one of my favorite animated movies ever. It's beautifully made, very funny, and has some great and surprisingly effective social commentary. But that was nearly a decade ago. I'm not sure why it took so long for a sequel to be made, but it's finally here. A lot of the original team returned to make this one, but I just wasn't all that hyped for it. Like, I was absolutely going to see it regardless, and I had a feeling it would probably be good. But between things like Disney's animated movies, the last several years being pretty lackluster, I mean, let's be honest, I think Moana 2 was pretty mediocre, Wish was very subpar, Strange World was very forgettable. Encanto was probably the last one they had where I was really impressed, and that was already 4 years ago. So I don't know, between that and then such a large gap in between the movies. I mean, Zootopia 1 came out in 2016, this one's coming out in 2025, and then the trailers didn't do a whole lot to get me very hyped, so I was only moderately interested in seeing it. But I have seen Zootopia 2 now, twice actually, and I think it's a really solid sequel. Maybe not quite as clean or classic as the original is, but still very good, and it retains a lot of what I loved from that movie. For one, the characters are still wonderful. Nick Wilde and Judy Hopps are some of my favorite characters in recent memory. They're so funny, charming, and have great chemistry, largely thanks to Jason Bateman and Jennifer Goodwin, but also some great writing that makes some fleshed out characters who you want to root for. You really care about these characters, you want to see them succeed, you really want to see them, work it out with each other, and really, I mean, they are some of my favorite characters in a movie in a long time. Like, I love these two characters so much. And I enjoyed the story in this film as well. It's a bit less straightforward as the original and follows similar beats. As I said, it's not quite as clean as that story, and I'll get a little more into that in a bit. But I like that it tries to incorporate world building and also isn't afraid to get darker and more direct with its commentary. And of course, as you'd expect, the animation is gorgeous here. The landscapes look beautiful, and you can practically feel the fur on the characters. Like, they're really detailed. I really think we've kind of reached a peak with the animation. Like, I don't really know how much further we can go with it before it just gets, like, totally photorealistic. But, as you would expect, the animation is phenomenal here. I think the villain in this movie is good and definitely poses a threat. Michael Giacchino does a great job with the score. There are some thrilling chase sequences, mainly one very close to the beginning of the film, and then another around the halfway mark that involves water. But I think that the real heart of this movie is all in the last third or so. It's this great climax that feels a lot bigger in scale than the first film, but also a lot more emotional too. Like, that's the key thing that I think the sequel has going for it. It's a very emotionally driven movie, and the whole climax in this movie is so emotionally charged that I literally felt myself on the verge of tears a few times during it. And I felt my heart pounding. And I think it's partly because of how much I care about the characters, but it really got to me. Like, it's probably the most emotional a movie has gotten me this year, unless you count Better Man, which I saw in January. I count that movie as last year, but really, besides that, like, this is probably the most emotional I've been during a movie this year. And both times I watched it, the whole thing just snuck up on me, and I realized just how much I care about Nick and Judy as characters, and I really was so invested in just what was happening with them, and and seeing that they both came out okay, and I was really, like, it was getting to me a bit. So that was just a really good third act, very well written, and I think it just found a great way to make the stakes go up, really make you feel the tension of everything happening, and then it just really releases in this great emotional sequence. And moving on from that, though, there are a few new characters this time around, and I don't think any of them are all that special. You have Gary the Snake, who is likable, but isn't particularly memorable. Like, I don't know, I mean, I'd be happy to see him again, but it just felt like one of those characters that was here for this movie, and I wouldn't be shocked if we just didn't see him again or only had him in a small role going forward. And then there's this beaver named Nibbles, who's fine, but I think borders on too much energy. Like, at first when you see her character, you're like, oh, this character is going to be really annoying. And I don't think she didn't really get annoying to me, but she kind of verged on it a little bit. Like I was like, if they keep pushing this character further, it could get on my nerves. Um, they found a good balance of it. Like she has something to do, in the third act. Like she feels like a character who is important to the story, so she isn't just there as like the comic relief character. But again, I'm not like super, big on that character. If I just didn't see Nibbles again, I wouldn't be very upset about it. Um, as for my main issues with the film, it mostly comes down to the story feeling a bit too scattered, just not quite as clean as I said. It feels like it's kind of all over the place in some ways. I mean, it does come together, like it definitely, has like a cohesive story, but it's a little more like Frozen 2, I guess, where it's kind of like I wouldn't be totally shocked if it was revealed like that they just didn't have, a total idea of like what they were doing with the story and just kind of put it all together. It doesn't feel like that messy like Frozen did, but I'm just saying like the story just doesn't feel as well thought out. Like the first film was just so simple and effective and just it felt like everything was just leading into each other. This movie just kind of feels a bit more like, okay, we're going here and then we're going to go here and do something else here. It's not as clean. It felt like there were some changes probably made throughout the film. I did read that one thing is this movie was supposed to originally take place like a while after the first film, and then they decided to make it only take place a week after, which is what this movie does. It's only a week after the first film, and I don't know how much was affected by that, but I'm sure there were some other changes like that that kind of just like affected the movie a little bit. Just felt it a little bit, not like a big problem or anything, just something I noticed. And then some jokes felt like they were more aimed at kids. Like they have this ongoing joke with like Zebros, which I don't know, it never made me laugh. I just felt like it was for kids only. And then the other thing is like the movie feels a touch too long. Like it's pretty close to 2 hours, I think. You probably could have cut like 5 or 10 minutes off and it would have been a little better, but that's just me. And really, though, as far as sequels go, Zootopia 2 is a very good one. It had an extremely high bar to clear, which is probably another reason why I was more skeptical of it. But everyone brought their A game and reminded me of just how fun these movies are. Like, I love Zootopia 1. I think Zootopia 2 is really good. I'd love to see Zootopia 3 be made. And hopefully it doesn't take too long for it to happen. I hope we can get it, in a few years. There's a post-credit scene in this movie that kind of teases where things could go. And, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Should we get one? And I think, as a whole, this was a really solid movie. So I'm going to rate Zootopia 2 a B+. All right, and next up is Hamnet. Honestly, I wasn't really planning on reviewing this movie. I figured I would see it, maybe talk about it later on and discuss it in a list about the Oscars in a few months, but I was just so surprised by how much I like this movie that I really want to discuss it here and recommend it to you all. Honestly, like, I really wasn't planning on reviewing this. I had, like, my whole schedule laid out. I was like, I was going to review Wake Up Dead Man, the new Knives Out movie, which I saw, like, a week ago in theaters, and I really wanted to review that. But then I saw Hamnet, and I was like, you know what, Knives Out can wait. Hopefully I still can review that. I mean, last month and this month are so packed with movies that, I really wish I could do more movie reviews on this podcast, but it's very hard. So just, keep an eye on my Letterboxd. I have some reviews on there if you can't get them on here. But, anyway, though, I mean, Knives Out, really good. But Hamnet, I really wanted to review this movie. And I did think this movie would be good, but I wasn't prepared for how much I'd like it. The trailers didn't blow me away, and while I certainly appreciate Shakespeare, I don't love his work, and I didn't have a lot of interest in a fictional story of his life. That's at least what this movie was sold to me as, but in reality, it's a deeply human story about a family that goes through some rough events. It's about love blooming between strangers, it's about grief, it's about sacrifice and tragedy. This movie really is everything a Shakespeare play would be, but it's a modern take and feels very soulful. It's based on this book called Hamnet. That's, kind of what this movie is, but, and then that's based on the play Hamlet. And you get a little bit of, why like the name is different. It's whatever. But anyway, Chloe Zhao does a fantastic job directing this film and knows exactly how to get these real, authentic reactions out of the actors. Everyone is just so, I think raw is the right word. Like there were some scenes here where I was just like, wow, like that is such a raw emotion right there, and like you could really feel it coming from these actors. Like it didn't feel like they were acting. It felt like they were really like just yelling and crying and all these things, and it was just brutally raw. But I think Zhao also just gets how people act and react to things. Like in a lot of ways, this is the most human film of the year. It's also probably the saddest, but it's very human too. Jessie Buckley is excellent, almost certainly a Best Actress nomination for her coming up in the future. And same goes for Paul Mescal for Best Supporting Actor. And I have to shout out Jacoby Jupe. I think that's how you say his name. I hope I'm not butchering it. But he's this young child actor who blew my socks off here. Like, what the heck, man? This kid is amazing. Probably the best child performance I've seen since maybe Jojo Rabbit. He's got a very bright career ahead of him, I think. If he's this good now, it's like, yeah, like, wait till he gets older. Like, it's going to be crazy. He's going to get an Oscar. Probably not for this movie, but in the future, like, he definitely has it coming. Now, what I really was blown away by in this movie is, as I kind of said before, just how brutally and beautifully human this film is. Hamnet showcases the highs and lows of life at their extremes, and therefore makes us as an audience go on this wild roller coaster of emotions. And it's all done in this way that feels true to life, in my opinion. Despite it being fictional, despite it being about Shakespeare from centuries ago, despite having these dreamlike sequences, it all feels very authentic. It feels very real, and I found myself so moved by the film. And I don't know if I'd say that I was moved to tears, but I did get very emotional and can say that my entire audience was sniffling by the end of this movie. They were all very affected. There were even a couple people next to me who were like clearly very passionate about Hamnet. They like this guy next to me literally had the book like literally like right on him, and I think they were even dressed like Shakespearean. I could be wrong about that. Maybe they were just dressed for something else, but that's the vibe I got. And they were like really blown away by the movie. They loved it, but they were like also crying a lot. It's a very emotional film. And I feel like I'm trying to be very vague with this movie because I think not knowing the story makes it more impactful, to be honest. But I thought as a whole, it was done beautifully and took me on this journey through life that made me think and feel a lot. Like, if I had to kind of put this film as like what it reminded me of, like one of my favorite movies ever is Arrival. And the first, 5 minutes of that movie just make me so emotional and just really get to me. Same goes for, the first 15 minutes of Up. This movie's kind of like that, as an entire movie. And it really got to me. I will say, the third act in this movie was originally something I wasn't huge on as it was happening. It kind of seemed to shift focus a bit, which frustrated me in the moment because it kind of went away from the family stuff, like we were focusing on these core family members, and then it kind of shifted into more on, Shakespeare's work and, Hamlet as a play. And as it went, and it got to the end of the movie, I sort of realized why this needed to be the climax of the film, and why this was the right ending to it. The final few minutes of it are so good and touching. It's probably one of the most memorable parts of the film, too, to me. Like, just some of the imagery there is just, burned in my memory right now. I can totally recall it, immediately. And I'm like, that's such a great scene. And I think, you could just argue, that's why Jessie Buckley could win Best Actress right there. Because she's fantastic in it. You just feel all these emotions, and it's such a beautiful scene. Max Richter does the score for the film, which is beautiful, and he also put this one piece of music near the end of the film that absolutely wrecked me. I knew exactly what it was from the first note alone. I don't know if most people will recognize it, but to me it's one of the most beautiful pieces of composed music I've ever heard. And I think some people have been divided over it. I've seen some people online kind of been why'd you put that in there? And then other people being I totally get why they put it in there. I think it fit well. Like, to me, at first I was like, why'd you do that? Like, why'd you put this music in here? And then, like, as it was going, I was like, no, it works. It's good. It was a really good scene and a really good movie. And really, I thought Hamnet was great. Easily a top contender for 2025, and definitely a movie a lot of people should watch. It's not an easy watch, but if you're looking for a quality film with great performances, writing, and direction, this one should do the trick. And I'm pretty certain this will be up for many awards this year, and I'm almost certainly going to be talking about it again on my top 10 movies of 2025 list coming very, very soon. Probably still a couple months away at this point, but it'll come. And yeah, I'm going to rate Hamnet an A-. And that about does it for this episode. If you want to follow my reviews, you can find me on Letterboxd at MovieKing1224. You can also listen to this podcast on your favorite apps such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear it and improve the show. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to hear more like it. I appreciate you all so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.